it makes me want to say that as soon as COVID has died down enough, I'd love to do a bagels on the beach because there are so many new residents in the community that we don't know. And I think that will really make a difference. Hot wire was installed in my home, and I will tell you, the graphics on the television are excellent. It is far superior to what we had. The crew was a large crew that came in. Each one took a different area of the house. They had shoe covers on. They were quick, they were fast, they were responsive. And we followed up about a week later with someone who came and tweaked it. And I can't say enough good things about it. I'm really pleased. If only I could figure out how to use it all. Thank you for the Valentine's gift. That's always a surprise we look forward to every year. I did notice the grass is dying too. I don't know if it just needs a good old fertilization or a little more water. And I didn't know myself that we could sign up for the alarm service now. Can we?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, so I'll give them a call tomorrow.
It's the rights. Which I'll talk about it through the audit report. So
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Councilman Bernstein, Einstein?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Evening. We have an item on the agenda tonight that I think is on the Massini wall, Terracina walls that are coming up. I think they're important. I know that it's been on the bucket list and on the wish list and our capital improvement plans. One of the things I was discussing with the town manager this week was that a number of items have come to the forefront to the town in terms of either capital improvement projects or projects that would take expenditures of money. And I felt or feel at this time or at some time, we need to kind of decide in terms of our priorities, how we're going to do this. And I know in the past, the manager has always developed find money to do things. I know one of the items we're looking to refinance tax-free bonds. I know we're looking at different avenues of monies from people in the town. I know that the dynamics of the town have changed tremendously. And people are demanding more in terms of what they want. And I think the town has always looked to a great degree and has been sensitive to try to accomplish this without raising taxes. And I just think that at some point we should take a little bit of an overview of what the items are that are going to be in front of us, because, you know, when it's 35,000, you know, we're paying attention to it. But when it gets to be 400,000, $250,000, when those type of items, and this wall's costing that amount of money, and I know it's been on the list for 10 years, I just think it might be a time to take a look and maybe a workshop that we may want to do. I don't know. But I'd like to know, you know, how much money do we have? What are the priorities of where we want to spend them? You know, in terms of a new town hall, a new the pump station. It was talk about relocating the pump station. And by the way, the monies that are being granted, that's not for that is for that pump station. Okay, and just so that
I'll have a little look at my board.
okay, and that money is done. There's no veto power to governor.
That's great. That's great.
It's great. It's already done. Okay, great. And so those are just some of the items about town manager that kind of, if you could elaborate on some of this things so that we have a good overall view of what's in front of us, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of wish list stuff that people want. And again, I think there's a lot of wish list stuff like how are we going to do it without raising taxes in the most economic way. So
Thank you. Councilman Mandel,
Just a great job on the grant.
Vice Mayor Mandel, at the end of this period.
Oh, well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the former vice mayor on a very,
I'm being council member now.
yep.
on a very successful, career. But besides that, just great job on the grants. That's pretty much it.
I can't think of a better person to hand over the vice mayorship to Lydia.
Should there be a crown and some maybe orchids?
For me?
Into the room?
Yeah, why don't you get some more orchids? We haven't had orchids in. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to town manager's report.
Mayor, if it's okay, what I'll do is to answer the question about project goals and priorities and any project related questions. I'll talk through the project updates and I'll just stick to the general business stuff for the manager update. So we are aware of some issues going on in North Park with the sod in North Park. And as you know, North Park is getting a lot of more use out of it. So we are aware that it's getting brown. We are also aware of the 5-foot green space that is getting brown and yellow. We spoke this afternoon with the maybe a fertilization issue. The town landscaper and the town landscapers are working on a solution to that. As you know, last year, back in, I believe it was September, October, we spent a couple weeks putting together a comprehensive grant to the state of Florida through its resiliency program for costs associated with pump station number 1. We didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves in terms of the money being used to relocate the pump station, or could it be used for repairs to the pump station, because we're in a state of uncertainty as to what's going to happen with pump station number 1. So we were able to write a grant that was a little bit ambiguous in terms of what the dollars are actually going to be used for, but we knew that they were associated with pump station number 1 and to make the town more resilient. I'm pleased to announce that last week, the county did receive $500,000 of free money that we will not have to repay for costs associated with pump station number 1 and making the town more resilient. The town staff was hard on that. We did use thank you for that. Also last week, we had a really good week in Tallahassee. As you know, the state legislative session is currently underway. We were able to get all 3 of our projects into a spending bill. As a reminder what the projects are, we requested money for the bunker. The bunker is part of the new civic center. We got $378,000 allocated for the bunker. We asked for money for a new wellness center, just stated need, and we had about $200,000 for the wellness center. And then we asked for some portable pumps. As you know, we've been having some flooding issues on the intersection of North Island and Verona. North Island, I should know this.
Navona.
Navona, and at the intersection of South Island and Verona, I think. I'm gonna get in trouble on Friday. But at those at the island and the intersection, we're having flooding there, and also at Singer Park. So what we did is, we know that there's very limited space to put in a permanent pump station at those locations. So we asked the state to help us defray the cost of buying portable pumps that we deploy when we see flooding in those areas. And they actually allocated $78,000, I believe it is, to that project. Now, as Councilman Einstein asked earlier, are these dollars secured? No, they're just in the funding bill. We still have to work our way in the Senate. And then, of course, we have to survive a governor veto. The good news is the state's doing pretty good money-wise. So we think it's going to be a good year for projects. As you know, last year we did secure $350,000 that was vetoed by the government, but we are working aggressively to keep those projects alive. We do not sleep when it comes to finding resources to defray our costs to our tax base. We're constantly looking for ways to maximize our money. And as a reminder to our residents who are watching at home today, this council and this administration has been able to leverage the $12.5 million loan that it authorized us to take in 2008, and we turned that into a $58 million capital program by leveraging those dollars and securing state, federal, and other resources. So this is just one more of those activities. As a reminder, this is an election year. Councilman Einstein and Councilman Burstein are up for re-election. Those 2 seats along with the mayor seats are up. The dates, the clerk did not send them to me. The dates are the 2nd of January through the 6th of January. So this year's qualifying period is the first week of the year. So just be mindful of that. The other quick news is kudos to the police department and the task force that they had. I also want to announce that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the chief will be hosting all of the communities that have a marine patrol. They'll be having their quarterly meeting here in Golden Beach at the Beach Pavilion. We're seeing the police department becoming even more and more proactive. We're looking proud of the work they've done. And so Lieutenant Diaz And Chief Ravello will be leading that organization. We're hosting them for breakfast and lunch tomorrow at the beach parade, and we wish them luck in that endeavor. This tomorrow, we're having a site visit by Perfect Will for the Civic Center project. And then the last thing is next Thursday, February 24th at 11 a.m. is the topping off ceremony, not tree lifting ceremony, topping off ceremony of the Civic Center, where a tree will be lifted to the roof. A plaque will be presented to memorialize all of the individuals who are part of our team that helped build the Civic Center. And then barbecue will follow. That event, unfortunately, is closed to the public. It is only for it's only for the committee members and staff, and of course the council and the design team. And we look forward to that event. It will probably be the only topping off ceremony that will ever happen at the beach. Well, maybe the Wellness Center topping off ceremony. Maybe the Wellness Center topping ceremony. But we're excited about it. As the mayor said, the building is going up pretty fast. And I'll talk about the building during the part of it. That's it for the manager.
I would just like to add, I should have said it in council comments, I can't believe how fast it's going up. I blink. And it's,
Still have a long way to go.
We have a
I
lot,
know,
yeah, and I'm gonna
but
talk about
still.
that. I want to talk about expectations. We have about the project, because we have put the brakes on it a little.
Well, looks like it's moving fast. Every
It
time I
has been.
pass it, it's another floor.
Yeah, it has.
Thank you, town manager. Town attorney, do you have anything this evening?
No,
Okay, town attorney. Ordinances.
wait.
Keith?
Wait.
Yeah, but. No, okay.
We're not ready for it.
All right,
Never mind. Moving along.
Yeah.
Ordinances second reading, there are none. Ordinance first reading, item number M1. Ordinance of town amending the town of Golden Beach Employee Pension Fund pension plan to provide a pre-retirement death benefit for the beneficiary of a vested member.
An ordinance of the town council of the town of Golden Beach, Florida, amending chapter 24 personnel, article 2 retirement, division 1 general employees by amending the town of Golden Beach employees pension plan at section 24-33 benefit amounts and eligibility, and creating section 24-40 transfers from general employee member to police officer member, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing effective date.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I need a second.
Second.
Town manager, would you like to review?
yeah, first I want to thank the council for always being open to exploring new possibilities to enhance the benefits to our employees. As we have seen under this administration, we have had a very dedicated team that have been with us for a very long time. And what we want to do is we always be able to provide the best benefits for our employees, let them know that they're appreciated and they're rewarded, and provide for opportunities for them to advance themselves. So what this item does is twofold. Number one, it allows for a general employee to have upward mobility or transition to other categories within the city's pension program. Right now, we have two categories: general employees and police. So if it's a civilian employee, and no, this item was not drafted because I have now become a police officer. As a reminder to the council and to our residents, the manager position has an independent section of the pension ordinance. This does not apply to me because I become a police officer. But we do have two general employees who recently have been sponsored to the police academy and have graduated and are now working in their capacity as law enforcement officers in our community. Under the current code iteration, those members would have to forego their vested period of time as a general employee and leave the pension and rejoin the police officer. What this item does, it says, you have earned your time as a civilian, you keep your multiplier as a civilian, and your clock as a police officer starts now for the purposes of the 20 and out. And your multiplier now increases to the police number and your contribution increases. So it allows for a general employee to have upward mobility and to be able to have advancements within our organization without losing their vesting period. That's number one. Number two is an item that is near and dear to all of our hearts, and it's what happens to our survivors, what happens to our families, what happens to our beneficiaries, heavens forbid, if we were to depart prematurely and we're not retired. Currently, our benefit, our death benefit, only applies if you have an on-the-job related injury, or death. So let's assume that you're an employee of the town and you're sitting at home and you have a heart attack. And you die, but you've been a town employee for 20 years. Currently, your family only gets back what you put into the pension there's a percentage of increase that's guaranteed. I think it's a 5% rate of return that's guaranteed on that money. Most cities, and we ask the attorney, not the administration, to independently look at what other cities offer. We try not to influence, guide, or suggest anything to the attorneys. So the attorneys look at other similar cities and look at what they provide for a death benefit for employees that are not on the job related deaths. So as a way, so that you would depart this earth, be able to provide it for your family. This is for vested employees. So employees where, by the way, in Golden Beach, we have a 10-year vesting period. So after 10 years, you are vested. Should your family, should your heirs, the way the item is written tonight, we're going to be recommending a change. Because right now the item says for your spouse or your children. There seems to be support from the council to change it to your beneficiaries. Because some individual staff members may not have a spouse or family member, but they may have a fiance or a loved one that they've been in that relationship for a long time, who they have as their survivor, and they should have that benefit versus it limited to spouse and children. And what it does, it says that heavens forbid should you depart us, your family will be entitled to an immediate survivor benefit that is calculated as the early retirement benefit for a 10-year certain, so 120 payments. And then we're done with that. And so what this does, it gives peace of mind to our employees and more importantly to our family, should we depart, that they're not left without any type of security for them. Now, there have been some discussions with each of you privately, and I'm gonna speak vaguely about them, and then as you have your discussions, you can talk about them more in detail. Like I mentioned earlier, right now, the way that I had the attorney draft this ordinance is for spouse or children. I think that there's been enough support privately to ask the attorney to please change it so that it's whoever your designated beneficiary is. We feel comfortable and the employees are extremely appreciative of the fact that we're now adding a benefit and we accept the early retirement calculation because it's a lot more than what we get today. We thank the council for the 10-year certain because the 10-year certain, and by the way, where does the 10-year certain come in? So if you are retired, so if you're a retired employee and you pass away, your family gets the balance of your 10-year guarantee. So if you've been working for 2 years, you've been collecting for 2 years, your family gets the balance of 8. So the 10-year certain comes in from the premise of what you would have done if you were retired. One of the questions that came up in conversations with the council is, what happens to an employee who decides to leave us? So they've chosen to seek opportunity elsewhere. Should this benefit still be afforded to them? That is a very responsible question. I think it's a very fair question. I think it's a question that this council needs to discuss publicly tonight in terms of what your wishes are there. I have my opinion and I'll share that with you when the discussion comes up. I think that there is a middle ground that can be found. The other question that came up is, should we hold this out as part of our contract negotiations with the police union? Since we're negotiating with the police union in the next couple of months. I will tell you that I've made it very clear, abundantly clear to the union president, that this is considered part of what we're offering as part of the next contract. And should they decide that it's not, by the way, they wanted, in fact, they didn't even know that this was an issue until we brought it to their attention. So it will be, we will get the credit, quote unquote, for this item as part of the union contract. In addition to the other things, as I mentioned before, this year's contract needs to be a little bit more open to some changes and to be more competitive in the market. I don't want to talk about it tonight because it's about this item, not about that. But I know that was one of the concerns. So we believe that these 2 items, these 2 changes are in the best interest of this town. It also provides us a little bit more assurances that our employees will continue to be loyal to the city. And I thank the council in advance for anything that it gives our general and police employees as it relates to these pension items. This is the second of a series of pension reform items that we're going to be bringing to you. I will be short-sighted if I I would be a little bit short-sighted if I did not share with you two news items that have recently occurred. One of our longest-serving pension board members, Mr. Manners, has tendered his resignation from the board. He's reached a point in his life where he feels that he would be better served doing other things for the community. So we are actively looking for a new pension board member to serve in Mr. Manners' place. We will be asking Mr. Manners to come to the March meeting where we will recognize him for his long and committed service to our pension board. And thank you, Mr. Manners, for your time tonight for that. And there are rumors that we may be using another resident that recently sold their home and are currently now leasing. Should that resident leave the board, we will need to have someone else. So I asked the council to actively help me recruit a new board member for the pension board. So I wanted to share that as part of this item. There will be an actuarial report provided to you by second reading as it is required by state law. In speaking to the actuarials, they feel that that the impact of the actuarials to the town is very de minimis because of the way that our actuarial assumptions are made as it relates to mortality and as it relates to the transfer. That's my long-winded explanation on what this item does.
All right, so basically, there's 3 items to discuss, and I'll open up to the council. One, if we change it to designated beneficiary, okay, from now spouse or children. So someone, that's one item to discuss. Second item to discuss is the length of service. Is 10 years service sufficient, or you want more or less? Or it has to be minimum 10-year service, but then after 10 years, they're entitled to the benefit. And third is obviously the whole ordinance itself, whether you want it to pass or not. So with that, I'll open it up to council.
Can we add one more?
Sure.
Which is just, I had raised Alex, I realized this, what we're doing is an increased benefit to our employees, that we're trying to show them support for their loyalty to us. I felt like in some ways that if we gave it to people that were no longer employees, that it would be taken away with like some of the benefits of someone staying longer term with us. And I just thought that if someone's only here with us for 10 years versus someone who's here for 30 years, there should be a difference in how they're being treated for this that benefit. Because I believe if they're an employee, they should definitely qualify it. And the other thing that I think we just need to talk about is just fiscally to move forward this. And I realize that we discussed actuarial, but and I don't know if you want to add one other part of the first part that Alex said about switching the employees to the police. So there were just 2 other parts.
What's the last part?
Switching the employees to the police, first part.
Switching an employee would just go from general employee to police.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so change in, okay. So why don't I start with you, Councilman Burns? I'll open up the discussion with you.
I'm supportive of everything. I accept, and I think we should be rewarding our employees. I think this is nice benefit. I'm not sure how I feel about someone who's been with us for 10 years, the age of 40 or 50, and leaves somewhere else for another, and works there for another 10 or 15 years before they might qualify. I'm not positive about that. And I think that if someone works here 30 years and they leave because of health issues or something, I believe they should get it, but I don't know if someone who's only worked here 10 years decides he wants to work for someone
So
else.
give me a recommendation.
I think that maybe we come up with some of the criteria after you work 10 years. If you decide to leave, how much should you get? Like if X is the amount that an employee would be getting upon death, an employee's family would be getting on death. And that's what someone who's currently an employee would get. Maybe you scale it down to the extent that somebody is not working as an employee. And maybe you're reducing it by 50%, 20%. I'm just saying, I think there's like a sliding scale for rewarding people who are here longer.
So that would be for an employee to separate.
Yeah.
So Judy, your thoughts? Councilman Luskin?
I'm really supportive of the people, because I think Our employees are very dedicated to us and they tend to stay a long time. Can they change their beneficiary at any time?
So you're allowed to update your beneficiary point until the time of retirement. In the case of when you elect a survival benefit under the spouse survival benefit, then you cannot change. So because the survival benefit is based on the age of the spouse that you have at the time that you reach retirement. And should your spouse pass away and you remarry, they do not get the survival benefit. That's the way the ordinance is currently structured. But that's for retirees. That's somebody who has actually retired. That's the way it works. You are allowed to update your beneficiary form. In fact, you are encouraged to do so and validate it at every open enrollment or throughout the course of the year by contacting the HR department.
With that, Councilman Einstein?
Yeah, so can you explain a little bit about how this works in terms of, are we talking about a death benefit of 100,000, 10,000, 50,000? What are we talking about?
So I can't give you a number because every single one of our employees has a unique salary and their multipliers unique to them based on their years of service. Let me just give a quick crash course of the rates of pensions in the town of Golden Beach. So you get a percentage of your salary based on your years of service. For our general employees for the first 10 years have a multiplier of 2.25%. What does that mean? After 10 years of service, right? And let's say they reach their 10 years of service and they're 65, because you have to be 65 to retire Golden Beach. So they work for 10 years, they're 65. They would get 22.5% of the average of the highest 3-year salary.
So say the average salary is 75 grand, which is the high end. So 22% of 75 grand,
22.5%.
hold on 1 second, times 22.5% is $16,875.
So the families to live off of 16,000, whatever that number was.
875.
Okay, now after 10 years of service, the multiplier changes for those employees to 2.5% for every year they're after the first 10 years. For police, the multiplier is 3%. So the police get, after 10 years of service, 30% of the average of the highest 3 years. So that's how the pension is defined. With this item, by the way, our actuarial study, that this came up this afternoon, and again, we're required by state law to provide you with a calculated study by second reading, but our actuarial study has an assumption of zero mortality. So our actual study assumes that all of our employees who are currently active will reach retirement age. That's why if you notice, our pension has a very low unfunded liability number because it assumes that all of the employees will reach normal retirement age. So what happens if you currently pass away on the job and it is not job related? If you pass away and it's not job related, your family gets back what you put into it. What does that mean? Our general employees put in 3% of their salary into the pension on an annual basis, and your police officers your manager puts in 6% of their salaries into the pension on an annual basis. So your family only gets back what you contributed with a 5% rate of return guaranteed every year.
And Councilman Einstein, just to refresh your memory, so the pension is funded for this. So it's not actually costing the town. We've already funded this into the pension. So as town manager explained, the actuary determines that, and that's why we have X amount every year going into a pension.
And this is where here, our pension currently has a balance of $12.5 million. So we have so the pension actually has more money in the city. It has a $12 million, we have a $12 million pension fund, of which we currently contribute to the pension fund close to $784,000 a year. That's our pension, that is our normal pension cost on an annual basis. What we're proposing tonight, which is similar to what other cities have, is a death benefit. So let's assume that you have a family and you have earned that retirement. It is yours. Your family, you and your family are waiting to use those dollars when you retire, but boom, you got hit by a bus and you died today. Or Mayor Singer stressed you out so much that you had a stroke in your, and you died, that's under my center.
Blame it on the mayor.
Your family, the premise is that your family should receive what you've already earned. And they shouldn't lose that benefit. And so now what we're saying is, we agree that your family should receive that benefit that you earned should you have reached retirement age. We believe that there should be a little bit of give and take, so we're gonna offer to you at the early retirement rate. What is the early retirement rate? For every year of service that you leave, that you retire, it is reduced by 0.5% for every year that you retire early. So what your family, the benefit that your family will get is a reduced benefit based on your age and the day that you die. So it's an early retirement benefit, and you have a 10-year guarantee. You have 120 guaranteed payments to the family. After that, that's it. We're done with your family. Hopefully by that time, your wife or your husband would have learned how to work and have a second job or remarry to be able to provide for the family. Because I think that we can all agree, very open and honestly, that getting back the 3% that your spouse put into the pension leaves you very little to cover your mortgage payment, your car payment, provide for food, water, electricity for your family, for an employee who has dedicated their lives to this community. And so to provide some peace of mind that should you pass away, your family will at least have something to rely on that you have already earned. The only problem is that you die before you're able to attain it, is responsible for our members. The other thing that will come up later, and I don't want to murky the waters tonight, but we're going to bring it up to you in hopefully the next year or two, is our retirement age. We have a very high retirement age. So an employee who starts with us at age 20, which a lot of them did, who works for us for 40 years, that's it, I mean, it's a very high number, 40 years, still cannot retire because our retirement age is 65. So in the future, we're going to be looking at how do we solve that inequality or that injustice. We're not doing that tonight, but that came up in discussion with two of you in terms of what is the retirement. So this provides an immediate death benefit to your family should you pass away for a non-job related death.
I just. It's a death benefit. It's.
Yes,
Yes.
it's exactly, yes.
I
That's
mean-
what I'm trying
I
to
mean,
say.
And I just want to think out of the box for a second. Do they go out and buy a term policy for these people? Does the actuarial?
No, it's an investment. It's in the pension. So it's part of the pension. They invest in the investment portfolio. The pension grows. When something like that happens, the money comes out of the pension reserve, which town manager says currently at $12 million.
Okay, so, but the death benefit, it's not like you're getting a fixed of 50,000.
No,
We're not buying them life insurance.
no,
This is not life insurance.
no, they have life insurance policy separate.
So we have a, so let me.
Okay, so this is not life insurance.
No, this is your benefit, this is your pension. You're getting your pension early. Right now, the town provides through its life insurance policy, one time your annual salary.
But that's separate from that.
Can I
It has nothing to do with this.
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
Currently, we provide, the only death benefit we provide is if someone is killed.
On the job.
While they're working. So we're just expanding this to.
No, that's wrong though.
That's
Because they do have life insurance policies.
The only that the town is providing, they might buy life insurance.
No.
No, the town provides life insurance policy.
For
Okay.
one time your annual
Yes.
salary.
Okay, so currently the way that our ordinance is written, it says in terms of the death benefits they will receive, it's only if you are on the job, not including life insurance.
Right, that's just for the pension, per
I'm just
pension.
saying for that, and the only other thing that I want to bring up is, the amount that's in there is whatever it is beside the pension. And this will definitely put more stress on that pension. So just when we talk about this, when I raise the question of, is there not gonna be enough money? It doesn't sound like it's gonna change that much, but it will put more stress on the current pension you have.
But I gotta correct you on that. When you say stress, town has 62 employees. Now, they're not all gonna die in one day. And if you look at the time, our average age of our employees is probably in the low forties,
And our
right?
actuarials, and our actual contribution assumes zero deaths. It assumes that every employee currently on the plan reaches normal retirement.
But then all I'm saying is, if everything else stays the same, right now, we only make these payments out if someone dies in service. Now you're gonna have more death payments being made out, that's all. So you're gonna have more money going out of it, that's the only point.
That's true.
Before I go to that,
I'm not.
oh, wait, I was gonna, Jaime hasn't talked, but go on.
Okay. So it's a death penalty, and I just want to go back 23 years ago, 24 years ago, when we came in here. And the auditors came in to us and they said, hey, you guys got a lot of unfunded liabilities here. And part of that was, I think it was maintenance, who had built up a lot of time, accrued time, vacation time, that we were carrying on the books, and we had to calculate, got it up. All of a sudden, we said, we're gonna pay you off this, but now from now on, you either use it or lose it, there was, or I don't know what our current state of affairs are, but
We pay out 100% over a certain number with the exception of the contract employees.
okay, so, and that's my concern, as
But that has nothing to do with the pension.
council, yeah, I understand, but Councilman Bernstein's concerned too, is the financial impact is, let's say 3 years from now, we decided, it does cause too much stress on the pension plan. Can you go back and amend it, or is this like a one-time, when you do this,
I think you can always amend your pension plan. Correct, town attorney? Can you go back? No, you can always amend a pension plan.
you go
Nothing is
back to
written
the
in
police
stone.
and say, hey, I know we said this,
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Well, the police are different because that's by contract.
And
But I know Dade County in the years past, when Dade County was having financial issues, way back, you probably remember better than I do, like 20, 15 years ago, they had to adjust their pension benefits.
We could talk about our sister city, Bell Harbor. So Bell Harbor recently had negative pension reform. And what they decided to do is for all new hires, have them join the FRS instead of the city pension. So they offer two retirement systems. They have the city pension for all active current employees, and any new hire active pension reform goes to the FRS system. Now, I'm not sure why exactly Bar Harbor decided to take that action, because the FRS actually is a little bit more expensive than what we're even paying in our pension today. Because the contribution rate is actually costs more to the city and offers less benefits to the employee, but they make the decision that that's what they want to do, to share the risk with the state. So yes, you could always amend your pension ordinances. I think there are thresholds that need to be met in terms of true financial hardships. You can't just say you no longer want to offer it because we're tired of it. I think you have to prove that there's a reason why you're going to take away a benefit that an employee has planned for.
I understand that.
And we also don't want to mislead our
To
employees.
me personally, this is pretty complicated stuff. And I know you've spent a lot of time on this and
That we are not going to.
you have a grasp on it. And I'm somewhat dependent on that because I don't really, I get a general verse of it, but the algorithms, the calculus that they're using, what it looks like 10 years from now, if this and this happens, can a town of our size afford it? I don't know. I know what I read in the New York Times, is that every one of these cities have gone through, they can't afford the pensions that they paid out.
But let me talk to that point real quick, because this is also important for the council and our residents to keep in mind. I agree that for cities who have compounded annual increases, merit increases to their staff, when you have sanitation workers making $120,000 a year because of the cost of living and a merit increase, and now they have ballooned salaries, that yes, you can put a straight on your pension. We made a decision in 2008 after you hired me that we don't give merit increases. So we don't have.
Except for last year, we did give merit. We gave increases,
We gave bonuses.
We gave a cost of living increase, but not merit.
but we adjusted some people's salary.
Correct, because their classification was.
Right, but I'm just saying, so it is like an increase.
First time in 15 years.
I agree.
So cities that are under those hardships is because you see somebody who gets a 5% raise, which we don't do, and every other city in Dade County does, but we don't. And they do COLA increases, and they're built into their salaries. And we've been fortunate that our employees will leave us because what we do is we're very lucky that we offer our employees a bonus to show our support for them. But if our employees were to go to any other place, if we're in Miami Beach, I knew in Miami Beach as an employee, I had an 8% raise every year. Because I had a 5% merit increase, and that was my step, and a 3% COLA built into it. In our police department, our steps are 5% step, right? And so we stopped that. So when you have concerns in terms of what are the stresses on your pension, you have to look at the whole picture. What are your salaries that you're offering? How aggressive are you with your salaries? I'm going to give you an example as to why our pension is so healthy. So our pension has an assumption rate 8 or 5% on salary increases. Eight. So our assumption is that every employee will get an 8% raise. We've never, in the last 15 years, we've never given a 3%. 3% has been the highest score that we've given in 15 years. So we are overfunding our pension by 5%, the assumption rate. And so we do that because we want our pension to be very healthy and not place a burden. If you look at our unfunded liability rise for our pension, is a manageable number. And in fact, if we were to change the way our assumptions are read, the actuary report can actually get that number to 0, except for we like to use a method that shows an unfunded liability so that we're conservative and mindful of the changes that we make to our pension ordinances. We don't like to play the game on changing the rules and
Last part of this question, and you alluded to for a second, and I wondered if we have any checks and balances. You had mentioned that the pension to some degree is based on their last 3 highest years work service. And as we read in Miami Herald, the dispatcher, it was common parlance that once you reach a certain age, you were guaranteed overtime. So you would make from what you would usually make $110,000 a year, you're now making $270,000 a year for the last 3 years of your work. And your pension was, do we have a system
So yes,
on the checks and balance on that?
So a couple of things have changed, and you're right. I always find it very interesting when I read Miami Herald, where they put the salaries of some of our colleagues and other cities, how a police sergeant can make $354,000 in a year. And when you look at the Miami Herald report, you'll see fire officers making 380. And so these numbers become balloon because basically they pick up every shift. If there's a void, you can pick up the shift. I was talking to one of our employees who happens to work for another agency last night. Bless her heart, she made $191,000 last year because she picked up every shift available in the department that she works on an overtime rate. And so shame on that agency for not hiring more people to decrease the amount of overtime. That's why we are very aggressive and make sure that we keep our overtime costs. The other thing that has happened is, so under pension reform throughout the state and part of our pension ordinance as well, we have a cap of 10%. So only 10% of your overtime can go into your salary calculations. And so there are safeguards in place. I will tell you very candidly, our union is looking at ways of increasing that and maybe even putting in the off-duty rates, which some cities allow. Some cities say you can work off-duty for a private contractor, and we will allow you to use that money that you earn in off-duty as part of your earnings for pension purposes. A lot of cities do that. We have fought that tooth and nail, and we will continue to do that. But we're not unique. We're not reinventing the wheel here, right? What we are doing is making sure that we're taking responsible, conservative measures to offer our employees additional benefits while making sure that we do not create an undue burden on our budget or to this community. Let's also face it, and we saw it this past year. The mayor and I want to publicly thank the mayor for this, because I have seen a change in his adaptability to become competitive, to make sure that we're offering. The markets have changed. The workforce has changed. And yes, I've heard from other members and people that, well, if they want to, let them go find employment somewhere else. That's the wrong attitude to have. The attitude should be, we should be as adaptive as the market to ensure that our employees who have been loyal to us continue to be loyal to us. and I think the mayor has said this publicly out there, right? If he hasn't, I'll get in trouble later on.
Yeah.
We are at a point in our history as a community where we need to start making some aggressive decisions as it relates to our budget, our compatibility, and what we offer. And look at ways of tightening our belt to make sure we're more competitive. I said this publicly, I'm gonna say it again, if you read the budget, you'll see it. It is unfair. And I'm gonna probably get to a lot of this, so I'm gonna say it again. It is unfair that we have directors who wear 6 titles and do not make $100,000, when there are communities smaller than us, where the director only wears 1 title and they're paying $120,000 to the directors. And so in my budget message to you, I said, we will tackle that inequality in next year's budget. Because we have to reward those employees who are being loyal to us. And they have given us, at least all of them, there's at least 15 years. And so how can they continue to afford, look, you can't buy, I'm better, I got this, I got this.
So, before I let you speak on it, just doing some math real quick. So, because Councilman Einstein brings up a good point, and I want to clarify it. He's talking about the financial impact. If we go back to the example that I used, the $75,000 employees. Now, remember, this is an employee that dies off, not on work, okay? So what's the chance of that? Could it be 50-50, whatever? Take that in consideration. But if you take 10% of our workforce or 9%, say 5 employees, and they all passed away, using that $75,000 example, it's going to cost the town $90,000 a year, not cost the town the pension. And the way I figured it is, if it comes out to $18,000 a year times 5 employees is pretty much $90,000 a year out of the pension. So is it going to have an impact, a huge impact on a $15 million pension or $12 million pension? No. Okay, and that's 5 employees, assume 10% of our workforce dies on a non-work related situation. So it's, when you go through the numbers, it's not like we're paying out $150,000 every employee. And the other thing, is the town manager brings up a very good point. You know, the key is, we always stress that Golden Beach is an elite community, and we want the top notch. We have the top notch police department. We have the best town manager we have. We have the top attorneys. You know, to keep that reputation and to keep that service that we provide, we need to keep our employees for longevity. And Golden Beach has done over the years a phenomenal job of keeping their employees longevity. We have very, very little turnover. In today's society, anytime you pick up the Wall Street Journal, they're talking about the employment issues. Employees leave after a year and a half, 6 months, 3 years. We're talking about 10 years. If someone works 10 years for the town of Golden Beach and they pass away, I think they deserve to be compensated or a life insurance policy. Because today, most companies, and you guys all have employees, okay? All you guys have employees, except for Judy and I, but everyone else has employees. You know how hard it is to train an employee. And when you have a good employee, you want to keep it and you want your benefits. I don't want average benefits. As I told the town manager, I want people to say, I want to work for Golden Beach. I want police officers to say, hey, I want to work for Golden Beach Police Department. Not only because they're comparable in their pay scale, but they're great to their employees and their benefits are important. And that's important. And you guys need to look long-term versus short-sighted. And I'm not saying you guys picking you guys out. I'm just saying as a whole, this administration needs to look long-term. You know, do we want turnover or do we want to keep longevity in employees? And if you look at the financial impact, this change has very little financial impact to the town. And again, it's not directly the town, it's the town pension. And the town pension budgets for this situation. So with that, I'm sorry, Councilman Mandel, I know you've been waiting patiently. Go on.
So, what is the unfunded liability, the percentage right now of the pension that is unfunded? Yeah.
I don't have the exact number. The last time we looked at the number, it's at $800,000 on a $12 million pension. That unfunded liability is because of the way that we have the assumptions. We could change our assumption and have a 0 unfunded liability, but I like to keep that
Right.
back of my hair.
No, yeah.
And if you look at the financials, it's unnecessary.
And by-
Totally
And by
unnecessary.
the way,
I remember thinking like 92 and 97% fund.
this is very important, what unfunded liability means. That means that today, right now, immediately, every single employee retires and starts to collect.
So with that
So
said,
under that scenario, we're $800,000 short. What's the likelihood of every single one of our employees turning 65 or 55 under 20 years after police and start to collect? Highly unlikely.
so with that said, because that's exactly where I was going towards, because what I do remember from the previous financial statement, it was something in the 90s, which most municipalities, most cities, most states are nowhere near that. So I don't think that this could put that much stress on the pension itself, just because we're so well funded. But I don't see that as being a real issue there. What I do like is what Councilman Bernstein said, obviously we want to reward longevity, we want to reward loyalty. So maybe that scale system is something that we want to.
But if you think about it, they are getting rewarded for longevity because their multiplier increases because their salary goes. So it's not like they're being punished or someone is, because someone that works 10 years with the same salary doesn't get the same pension as someone that's worked 20 years. The 20-year pension individual going to receive a higher percentage, 50% more than a 10-year employee, whether it be a life benefit or death benefit.
To Councilman Bernstein's point, if they leave, I think your point was more, if they're here for 10 years and then.
I'm sorry, just because I started this conversation off. First of all, I applaud the staff, the mayor for bringing this and moving this forward to try to keep our employees, make it happen. I think this is a nice increase to our benefits. I am 100% supportive of it. One of the things that the mayor keeps saying is trying to keep our employees. All I was saying is, I think this is a benefit that we want to use to try to keep our employees. And if you just give it after 10 years and you say goodbye, I think it just,
But they don't get it unless they die.
I understand, but I'm just saying, I just think it should be a little bit, like, I don't want to just, I think that we are trying to retain our employees, we're adding a new benefit, which I think they deserve. You know, regardless if an employee works here 2 years, this is our employee who's here right now. The people that are going to be paying that is for currently right now. And all I'm just saying is try to keep people. I think it's better if we turn around and try to motivate them to stay with this and say, hey, this is a benefit you have as long as you stay here. If you leave after your 10th year, you're not going to get as much as someone who stays here. That's all. For the death benefit. I'm just
But
saying.
the point being is, I understand what you're saying, and give me a suggestion on what you think, and I'm not against it, but you guys gotta remember, he's not getting the same benefit as someone that's been here for 20 years. Okay, so the argument, and no one's gonna leave or not leave for 10 years for this death benefit. You're talking about $18,000 a year if you die. And, you know, so it's not gonna keep someone here or make someone leave this benefit. It's just an added benefit. But if you wanna change it, so bring me a number. What do you want?
Listen, we just went over this today and I'm just thinking out loud with everyone because I think we should be doing it. I think everyone's here is saying, let's do it. I just raising to everybody who want to do it for existing employees versus people who leave. That's it. And if it's going to be for employees that are no longer with the city, we want to just scale it down a little bit. And by the way, going back to the financial point, I was just saying, I think we just want to have somebody else, not just use your.
We're required.
But that's all.
Yeah.
But state law requires an actual report be provided to by the second reading, and they get followed the state Department of Pensions to make sure that it's fiscally sound and.
So why don't we do this, if everyone agrees, and if we can do this, town attorney? Let's decide on, let's hold that for a second, but I think, is everyone okay with the designated beneficiary? That they can choose their benefit, everyone's okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's that. The 10-year service, let's hold off on a second. The other thing is the change of status. If someone goes from an employee to the police department, I see no problem with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll all agree with that. The third thing was the longevity of it. And the other thing was the ordinance as a whole. I think everyone's okay with the ordinance. So can I make a recommendation? Because Councilman Bernstein has a financial concern. So instead of voting on the ordinance as a whole, we could vote on it, and then subject to what the actuary comes back with his report to see the financial impact.
But you.
And then-
Well, we should
Pass it
just-
on first reading.
yeah.
You pass it on
Right.
first reading.
And you
We're-
make whatever
we're-
amendments you want at second reading,
Right.
as long as they're within the.
So is that
scope.
okay?
Right.
Let's pass it on the first reading.
Let's pass it the first reading, here's my recommendation to council, let's pass it on first reading with the changes already, so we're gonna,
Beneficiary,
the second reading will come back with the beneficiary change,
correct.
right? If we wanna limit this to active employees and those employees who leave after X number of years, that can be done at second.
Yes, it can.
Is it, have you seen something in other cities?
I've not seen that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We'll look at it.
Well, does council even want to do that? I mean, it sounds like Jaime and I have raised it. Does anybody else care? Or?
No, if you guys care, I can wait. We can do, let's pass it anyways. You might change your mind when you see it.
On
and-
first
and
reading.
change it.
We have till second reading.
By the way, so I said earlier, I'll hold my position. I share the enthusiasm of the councilors who want to limit this to active employees, and I think that there's a way to find a middle ground. But I've given some scenarios where employees who have given 30 years of service or 40 years of service and leave still can't collect it, so we should not be, whatever we decide should not be harmful to those
Of
employees.
course, what you said is active or after X amount of years.
Yes.
I think to Councilman Bernstein's point, I think 10 might be a little too short for that, maybe it's a little longer, but
And in your scenario, I would think 30 years qualified to get.
More than
Well, not that would make it hard, like,
So
but
15.
yeah, well, and I like that, see, and I like that, I like to hear it, it's okay for a second. I hear 15 seems like a fair number, right? I know that there's at least 2 or 3 of you that feel that 10 is more than sufficient. But if you could then privately just share with me so that I can start workshopping with the attorneys on what that number is. Let me tell you why. Because whatever that number is, will have an impact on the study, the actual study report. So I like it, yeah.
Why don't we try to figure out when they would qualify? Let's say it's at 20 years, like that we are all certain everybody qualifies. And then we can just have a scale between.
And I want to make sure that we're clear what that means, sorry for interrupting. So if you're an active employee, you qualify after 10 years, but to receive a separated employee, the threshold would be a higher number, and you're right, I hear 15 over here, I hear 20, and I hear 10. So I would like, if possible, tonight to kind of get a sense of where you stand, because in order for the actuarial to write this report, it's gonna need to know what those assumptions are, because that's an assumption. Actually, I can have them run the report on all 3 assumptions.
Yeah.
Why don't I do that? Let me have them run the assumptions on all 3.
Perfect.
But I wasn't saying a dichotomy of you're either 20 years or you're not. I'm just saying. If you
Okay,
get
use
nothing,
benefit scaled down based on your.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
get
understand.
nothing to like the maximum benefit after 20 years and like each.
You
There's 10
understand?
years in between, like a 10% reduction each year.
Perfect. I'll work with the attorneys and the.
Yeah, so for
actuaries.
the first reading, with the changes stating that the designated beneficiary can be chosen.
Yes.
Change in staff position is approved. So with that, we have a motion. We'll take a roll call, please, to pass the ordinance. First reading.
Hold on, attorney, Mr. Attorney, you understand what the things are? And Madam Clerk, what we'll do is we'll rely on the attorney to provide that language for the minutes in terms of what the changes are gonna be. That's okay with you.
Yeah, we're making it apply to whoever the beneficiary is. That seems to be the only change.
No, and change of employee status.
Well, that's there already.
That's already there.
that's
That's not a change.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Singer.
Yes?
Vice Mayor Lustig.
Yes.
Councilmember Bernstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Isaac.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to quasi judicial resolution, there are none. Next is town major project update. Town manager, can you give us an
Yeah,
update?
here, I
on
wanna-
the project?
I do, and I want to share a couple things, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time tonight talking about the process and what we do. So, as we talked earlier, the Center Island Pump Station, is well underway, finally, FPL delivered the transformer, we're gonna go hot or go live there, in the coming weeks. There were some asphalt issues that we had out there, the mayor, something out there talking about the quality of the asphalt and how we're gonna get it corrected. Madam Clerk, if we can, and I know it's not that, let's add Hotwire back to this list. I want to brief you about Hotwire tonight. So Hotwire is moving aggressively. We know that there have been some restoration issues throughout town. We're working with Hotwire to make sure that those restorations take place. As of this afternoon, there have been 31 completed homes. So 31 homes are completed and are actually hot and live and home active. There are still, unfortunately, 160 homes who have not been surveyed. What does that mean? That means that we have not spoken to them. So as a reminder to our residents, whether or not you meet with us, you will be paying the assessment. So if you just actually don't want it at your home, at the very least, have the consultations. You can learn about the benefits of having direct fiber with speeds of 1 gig internet to your home and Wi-Fi managed in home, because you will be paying for it even though you do not accept service. So all 160 homes who have not met with us, please do so. It seems like the connections have gone pretty well. There's been a couple of issues in a couple of homes, in terms of the staff needing to use restrooms or things like that. We're working on solving that to make it a little bit more comfortable for the residents. All of the feedback that we've gotten back, so has been pretty good. There has been this question as to why is my device not receiving speeds of 1 gig? I'd like to remind the council and the audience, watching at home, I probably put this a little bit more clear this way, so I'm not looking that way all the time. The Aero system, your in-home Aero devices are reaching the 900 gigabyte speeds. But if your device does not accept that speed, you won't get that reading on your device. Even if your device doesn't hit that speed, you could on your Aero app system, and I'm going to try to go from here. You go to your Aero app, find it. Sorry. Okay. So you can go to your Aero app system, right? And anyway, I can't find it. So you go to your Aero app, which is mine is right here, Aeros, and you hit EERO, Aeros, and you hit here, you hit activity. Sorry. And so what you do is you go and find it. Activity. Speeds. And you say hit run speed test. So this is at my house. This is from here at my house. It's running, it's a speed test to see what the device is in my home. And I don't have that where I have Xfinity and this person, I'll pay for this on my own, with my system, all the disclaimers. So right now I'm asking my Aero system at my home, tell me what my devices are reading. My phone does not get 1 gig. I know that my phone has a limit of 480 gigabytes, right? So if I ask my phone to run its speed, it's gonna say, hey, you don't get that. So right now, from Golden Beach, Florida, testing my Aero system, my down speed at my home is 937 megabytes per second, and my upload speed is 24. That was conducted at 7:21 p.m. So if you go on to your Aero system, you can test them every night, every hour, to see what speeds they're achieving. When you update your phone, when you update your iPad, when you buy that new Total toilet that now requires Wi-Fi, I don't know why Total toilet requires Wi-Fi, but it does. You can check the speed of the devices and make sure the device can handle speeds of 1 gig. If your device is hardwired, you're always going to get those higher speeds should the motor be able to achieve that. What we committed to our residents is, and in fact, you remember back at the November meeting, I adamantly defined hotwire. I said, don't upgrade your speeds to 2 gig because none of your devices were supported. But we're seeing that. And so there's a lot of questions as it relates to why am I not seeing those speeds? It's a device issue, not a provider issue. So keep that in mind. Also,
I just want you to know that the fellow that came and tweaked everything for me after the installation downloaded an app for me just called Speed Test.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to use.
Now your
recommend-
speed test is checking your phone, not your Aero system. Keep that in mind. All right, so I don't harp on this too much, but we need to focus on, we need to bear that in mind. Also, we know that there are restoration issues. As it relates to the cable, and as it relates to the bills that were recently sent out. Okay, 2 things. The bills went out and the charges of the internet is on there. It shouldn't be on there. Those are coming off. We're not paying for internet right now. Everything's free internet wise. Some master bill went out, and so we have to correct those. But as it relates to the internet, so look, we always promise a internet package. with a managed in-home Wi-Fi system. We negotiated a package for your cable, should you want to switch all of your services to Hotwire and have them be your internet and cable provider, as well as your in-home security provider and your telephone provider. You can do all of that with them. All those additional services are at a la carte, so you're paying extra for those services. You want a phone, you're gonna pay extra. You want the cable channels, you're gonna pay extra, and all of the devices. It's a different system. At my house, my remote control literally is like this big, and I have like a little round thing. It's driving nuts because I like the old remotes where I could type A, B, C, D, E, F, P, and I can look up things. Now I have to toggle back and forth. So there are changes that we have to acclimate to, get used to when we go to different systems, or not. You have the choice to say, hey, I will accept the internet, and I'm gonna keep
Breeze,
Breeze Line as my cable provider, my phone provider, office security. That is a choice of yours. We do have to, in order to guarantee the negotiated retail rates for cable, have to reach a certain threshold. If you do not reach that threshold, your rates are guaranteed for 2 years. After those 2 years, you go to a normal competitive market rate with Hotwire for your cable TV services. Understanding that they offer competitive rates to Breeze Line and Xfinity. If you look at their channel lineup and their packages, I know because I compared it to my Xfinity, I believe, I told I would get sued for this, I believe Xfinity is one of the most expensive cable providers in the nation. I pay close to $320 a month for cable and internet at my house. I have a phone that I don't ever use, but I still pay for it because I still get a discount. So cable services is something we need to negotiate. We guarantee the rates should we reach a certain market saturation. If we don't meet that number, they go away. So no, that's where we are with Hotwire. Only 31 homes have been connected. Out of the 70 homes that are available to be connected, we still have a lot more homes that we're building the infrastructure to. Yes, sir.
just real quickly, as you're going over this, and if, I think my understanding is right, but I may be wrong. So if you have 5 people using Zoom in your house, so let's say your phone can't get 1 gig, but you're pushing out, you're receiving 1 gig into your home. If you have 5 devices in the house now getting Zoom, you're much better off getting the 1 gig coming into the house, correct?
Absolutely. So
Right,
right,
because that is now being divided up
yes, it's sheer bandwidth.
between those 5 people. And that's an important thing to know.
Yes, sir.
And just real quickly, the people that we have on staff that you have questions of, and particularly Jessica,
Jessica and Ralphie.
very responsive, tremendously responsive, very happy
Very good.
with their response time, and you should know that. You call Atlantic Broadband up now, it takes you 95 minutes of hold time
Mhm.
to speak to them. The only situation that's going on, and you're working on it with us, they're having a little bit problems, portability of telephone numbers.
Yes, and that's because Breeze Line doesn't want to release the numbers.
And Atlantic Broadband or Breeze Line does not want to release the telephone numbers to, even though you
They're
say,
required to by law.
I understand.
It's just the.
I've gone through 3 things with them already. They said they want this, then they said, Ben, will Hotwire said, can you give us a bill? And give them that, they still haven't released my phone line.
Alex, anything else? Yes, I have three other very important things.
Too many robocalls.
Building's going great, rate study's going great. We put in the magazine that we have a rate study that has an average of $50 to $90. We know that that's our threshold, that's great. I want to talk about the item that Councilman Einstein asked me to talk about during this request, about priorities and how our budgets get put together. I'll do a quick crash course because I know that each of you are already aware of this. But every year during our budget process, this council, this community, and I have dialogue. And we put together what we call our business plan and our capital plan. If you look at page 170 of your budget, if you all have an electronic, beautiful iPads that are provided to our town. On page 170 of the budget, you list here every year your future unfunded projects in no particular order. This list currently reads the following project as your long-term unfunded liability, or unfunded projects, not liability, different ones. The Wallet Machine, the redesign of Turtle Park, the proximity detectors and cameras on the intercoastal ocean, the increase of the time of the road that's going to be drive, the beach pavilion modernization, and the A1A streetlight replacement project. This list is created by you. You put this list together. When each of you meet with me one-on-one, we add these projects. Next year, during the budget process, you may ask to add more. One of the things that we're hearing recently is, should we modernize our mailboxes, provide locks in mailboxes? A project that Councilman Einstein championed back in 2007 when I was first hired. Our mailbox projects was on the list for Councilman Einstein. Councilman Bernstein asked for the garbage cans. What garbage cans do we have now throughout town? So those projects get listed. And then as we start finding dollars, we try to move those projects up and not down. In 2009, the Wallet Machine was added to the projects list. And since 2009, this council, or the former council, and Councilor Rojas was here respectfully, used to move projects. When the canal maintenance project had been on the list for 4 years, Councilman Riddell joined the council and had enough support to take it from the unfunded list and move it to the funded list. There's enough support, enough canal owners to want the canal project to be moved. Councilman Riddell championed moving it from unfunded to funded. As we identify dollars throughout the course of the year, we're not going to wait for the budget process to say, hey, let's move forward on a project, especially because cost of material goes up. And right now we're seeing that the fence world, concrete block world is hungry for it, although it wasn't a couple weeks ago. When we asked during COVID what a Wallet Machine would cost us, we talked about numbers in the tune of $800,000 to $1 million per block wall. We then asked for what we call a prefab wall. And we identified that we had a competitive market and we had savings in last year's budget that we could allocate dollars. And so your project list comes through through the budget process. We talk about it. You guys add projects or you take projects off, and we have taken projects off of the projects list. And that's how this comes together. It is this council's job to decide whether or not we're going to move projects into the funded stage and fund it and move it forward. Is there a priority? Is one thing more important than the other? If you notice, the top 3 projects listed on this list, we're working on. The redesign of Turtle Park, we issued a contract with Perkins and Will, they're currently working on it. How did we do that without your vote? It was under my spending authority. I have the authority to spend up to $25,000 on projects, so we moved it to the funded list. The proximity cameras, we're working on that. So that's how the list comes together. Yes.
Alex, just real quick, so if an item like the relocating at a pump station or changing this building like that, where does that come? It's not a long-term goal, but all of a sudden it may come up. What do we call, how do you categorize that?
So
How do we,
excellent. So this building, if you notice on page 169 of the budget, this building, the Wellness Center project was taken from the unfunded list. And by your action through your budget process, moved it into the funded list. And we actually funded money to study of building a new wellness center in our community. And in fact, we also authorized us to apply for grants to the state for money for a new wellness center. We did that. So through dialogue, through our conversations, a lot of it is done during the budget process. And during the budget process, that's why the mayor makes me go line by line, especially on the CIP project, to show what we're working on. So this past year, by your action, we moved the wellness center into the funded. And so what happens with the wellness center, what becomes of the project, as we hire consultants that come up with plans and renderings, we then bring it to the council. We hope that April is the date that we hope to bring you some proposed site plans and some proposed renderings for a wellness center. And so you will decide that at your council meetings. That's how the process has worked for the last.
no, I
15 years.
understand. How about the relocation of a pump station?
So-
That's something that's just came up, let's say, or it's a, let's say it's been there, but it's not, is it on the list or? is it-
Yeah, so in our stormwater fund, and let's talk about the relocation. We may decide as a community, and we need to be very aware of this. We may decide as a community that it's not worth spending $3 million to move a pump out to, because that's the numbers that we're recently looking at, 2.7 to $3 million to move that pump. It's not $1 million anymore. Oh, God. Okay, to get one more pickleball court or a bigger tot lot. So we may say, hey, what do we need to do to refurbish this pump station, keep it there, and look at other opportunities? That's the decision that the council has to make. Because is it worth paying $3 million to move the pump station to get an extra pickleball?
Do we
court?
have to use the 500 to vote?
No. So I wrote that grant in a way that we use it to either move the pump station or make improvements to the existing pump station.
We have to make improvements. So at minimum, we have to make improvements.
If we decide to keep it at the current location, we at a minimum have to put a downstream defenders and convert it from a well, a deep well injection to an outfall pump. And we're looking at those opportunities. So those are the things that so that's how things come up.
Just Alex, want to clarify something, Councilman Bernstein. We never thought that was gonna be less than $1 million. We thought it was gonna be like $1.7 million.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and then it came in at close to 3
By the
million.
way, in fairness to the administration, we assume cost of Center Island to move the pump. And so we paid, so we thought that's how the 1.7 came up. But when we looked at what will it take and today's market is to buy materials and stuff, the new numbers are close to 2.7 to $3 million. And it may not be in the interest of this community to achieve what could possibly be an extra pickleball court.
And
Or top lot.
that bid, correct me if I'm mistaken, that bid was to move it from there all the way down there. We don't know if it's more or less to move it from there closer to the wall. You know, there's other options. We're not even at the point to discuss it because we don't know where we're at yet.
Correct. But we did take the time to hire the engineers to start exploring options for us, because we always want to be informed of what our options are. The mayor brought up a really good point. We haven't tasked the engineers with other locations to see if it will reduce the cost, but that's something that we need to look into as well.
Okay, can we keep moving?
Yeah, the council.
Anything else? We're good? Okay, thank you. Good job. Or have you gone over all your updates?
Yes, sir.
You sure?
Thank you.
You already spoke 45 minutes, you want to talk another?
This is why.
Just kidding.
I know.
Moving on to the consent agenda. The following 7 items are on the consent agenda. Item number 2, official minutes of the January 18th, 2022 regular town council meeting. Item number P3, resolution of town council authorizing the purchase of software to assist the town police department with dispatch operation. Item P4, resolution of town council approving agreement between the office of the state attorney and the town of Golden Beach. Item P5, resolution of town council authorizing the sale of 1 surplus police vehicle and 2 Polaris Rangers from the town vehicle fleet. Item P6, a resolution of town council approving the proposal from Southeastern Engineering for curbs, gutters, and pavement repair on North Parkway. Item number P7, resolution of town council approving the proposal from Southeastern Engineering Contractors for stormwater system improvements within the town. Item number P8, a resolution of town council establishing a personnel board. Those 7 items on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone not in favor? Okay, moving on
Can
to
I ask a question?
vote on it first, please.
Was there a vote already? or
All
not?
right, let it go.
You can ask a question. Go ahead. Go ahead.
On North Parkway, we're raising the gutters and the,
In North Parkway, we're actually reversing the slope of the parkway,
right,
so that the water slopes into the parkway and now have to go to East Drive. We're not raising gutters.
okay,
We're installing gutters and repaving the road.
okay, I'm good with it then.
Okay, those 7 items one more time. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposes. Moving on to town resolutions. Item Q on the agenda, Q9, resolution of town council approving the construction of the privacy wall on Mancini and Terracina Avenues.
A resolution of the town council of of the Town of Golden Beach, Florida, approving a proposal from Permacast Walls for the construction of a privacy wall on the Sini and Terracina Avenues, providing for a waiver of competitive bidding procedures, providing for implementation, providing for authorization, and providing for effective date.
Any motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Town manager, you want to-
Mayor and council, so what we're asking is your waiver of your, we're asking for waiver of your bid process because we did go out and secure 3 proposals. Although the approach from all 3 proposals are unique to the proposal. So if you notice, Southeast Engineering and Garrett proposed a masonry wall. The tune of $1 million and $500,000. Permacast came in and said the way we would install that wall is we would use columns and prefab panels that are slide into place. So every firm that was invited to come in to provide us with a 10-foot wall had to decide to themselves what would be the best approach. We feel that the Permacast system is a fair and responsible system. What it does, it provides columns. The panels are then slid in. There's an image, if you turn your council package.
Similar to I-95, you would drive on I-95.
But be careful in stating that. So yes, similar, but these are not road rated walls. These are privacy walls. So yes, they're similar to that wall, but I want to be clear.
Aesthetically.
Yes, because it's important. So when you ask, if you were to say, well, how did the price come in so competitive? We have, because that is a right of way and not a roadway, there's a shared right of way with the golden,
Okay,
whatever golden that's called.
City of Howell.
The city of Howell area, because it's not a roadway. We have decided to use a privacy wall, which has a different rating. It will meet hurricane code, but that's what we've done. And so under that scenario, if you look out here, it's like, it's like a wall. It's like a wall on the highway. It's like the wall on a highway, but it does not have the same rating. I want to be clear about that. We're able to get this wall installed for $317,000. By the way, at 2 locations. It's the entire length of Messini from Ocean Boulevard to the intercoastal. We may have to stop when we get to the last building and finish some negotiations to get the last part of it put in. We're working with them on that. And then it's here on Terracina, the route from Golden Beach Drive to Ocean Boulevard, from the Golden Beach Drive to the new driveway for the Civic Center. The wall will go there. There's currently actually there's half of the fence left here behind the Areca palms. The goal at both sites, by the way, is to stay the greenscape that's already there. So Hallandale Beach has already agreed with us that we could put it on the other side of the fence to preserve whatever hedge we have on this side. The good thing about this, it doesn't have a footing. It only has a column that holds it up. So there's no cutting the roots and killing the trees. So there will be a high chance of survival of the landscaping that's there, because the only area where you actually trench a footing is where the columns go. And so,
And just so everyone understands, town manager and I did approach City of Hallandale and tried to get them to pay for part of it. And to no avail, they said no.
they're having some very good, but in fairness to our partners in Hallandale Beach who are watching tonight, I know that they are, we thank them for their flexibility in allowing the town to undertake this as a town of Golden Beach project, even though we're using the Hallandale side to do the wall. And we're doing all of the permitting, all of the installation, all the construction on site, because should they have taken a different position, this project could be delayed by another 2 years while we go through their engineer of their environmental impact study and all of their legal determination of the right of way and kind of easement rights and the insurance and all that. So we thank our partners in Hallandale Beach
Definitely thank you.
for that.
Any questions or comments? Yes,
Real quick question, how tall is the,
10
So
feet.
we're proposing so although the fence at Messini currently is 12 feet, this is a 10-foot wall.
so just real quickly, in terms of the contract with them and the 10-foot wall that they're putting in and our wonderful soil conditions that we have in Golden Beach, do they guarantee the fence to stand upright? Or will they come in and say,
I-
well, subject to your soil conditions, if you,
Excellent question. So I want, and I'm glad that you're allowing me to talk about this on a week later. So we did conduct a soil sample of that entire area that shows the depths of the pilings. Under this system, we won't have that issue. Why? The way the system works is that both columns are put on piles and literally the walls hang on the columns. So they're hanging, not dangling, but they're hanging on the columns. So since the columns are on pile, the integrity of the wall is protected because the piles would either be moving in order for the wall to not be straight. Because they're literally hooks that hook onto the columns and keep them all from being straight. But we did last year hire a soil sample to do boring along that entire wall and terracina to tell us the depths of the piling. And this price includes pin piles to the depths as required by the soil sample report. Excellent
Alex,
question.
quick question. Due to the fact you said something that I wasn't familiar with, you said due to the fact that there's roots there, they're not gonna adjust it. What happens, does that mean the wall's gonna be different heights?
No. So typically when you pour a block wall, you have to create a footing. So a footing is like a retaining wall that has legs, right? And so everything in that trench gets cut. Because the only area that get put underground is the columns, and their footing is a little bit different because a column footing isn't as wide as a footing for a wall, because the walls hang in between. So there's no clearing of roots to put a footing on the span of the wall. There's only clearing for footing for the columns, and the columns have I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's like 6 by 6. So those columns will get the footing, but the wall, the area of the wall.
Right, but if there's a root that's above ground, they're gonna have to take it out, because otherwise the wall's gonna be uneven.
Yeah, so there'll be minimal clearing,
Okay,
yeah,
alright.
but we're not cutting roots to
I
create.
understand.
but they gotta cut it, was it like this head there, what head?
No, so, and it's weird because this council, before I got hired, first bought some really expensive trees. I can't remember the name. Mary, you probably remember more than I do.
I remember.
But there was a very expensive tree that you purchased that was supposed to create a hedge and it never did. So when I got hired, we ended up putting ficus in there. And so what you have is 3 hedge
Different.
materials. You have a weird tree that I don't know the name, ficus and coconuts along that.
And then you had a resident who planted his own, which
Correct,
grew
yes.
very well,
Yes.
yeah.
So you have a hodgepodge of material there. The goal is to save what we have there. By the way, again, in the interest of full disclosure, we will then make any restoration to what we affect on the Highland side. You saw it and maybe clean up the street a little bit. To it. That's why the budget's more than what the contract price is.
So it's been no secret that I have been scratching around for this for a very, very long time, and I just want to reiterate some of the reasons I support it. Golden Beach is a different community than it was 10, 15 years ago. It's different than it was 3 years ago. A very high-end community. And on the south end of town, we've got a beautiful wall, regardless of how it got there and who paid for it. In the north end of town, it literally is held together in one part with barbed wire. It's absurd in a town of this stature. Security. I think if you ask any police officer, without trying to get involved, they would say it's probably one of the most important things we can add to the town for security. I believe that a breach anywhere in town is a breach everywhere in town because we're only 1.5 miles long. That's it. So anyone who comes in anywhere can get anywhere in this town within just a couple of minutes. That wall is next to Singer Park. Prior to it being Singer Park, it was Rock Park. Nobody used it. Now that it's beautiful and it's got a waterfall there, and we have so many young families that moved all over town, there's kids crawling all over that park now. What is it, 5 feet with the wall or the crummy fence that's behind it now? I just think it's inappropriate to leave it that way. It separates 2 counties. I mean, to separate 2 counties with a wall with barbed wire, a fence with barbed wire makes no sense to me. And like I said, for a top-notch community, we should have a good wall there. And my last point is, according to you, it's a bargain now.
It
In
is.
terms of the price.
Does anyone have any
I think
comments?
if we had a home that had the north side, the south side secure and nice, and the home on the north side had barbed wire and a rickety old fence, it would never pass inspection. And I look at Golden Beach as a giant home that needs to be walled in everywhere, and that's how I feel.
Well, what are you gonna do on A1A?
A1A, well, as far as A1, I can only say this. As far as the ocean, it's patrolled every single night. As far as the canal, it's patrolled every single
I
night.
agree, but in terms of people, and this is another side, though, in terms of security, I know there's a door that we're working on,
But this will eliminate the door at the
Right.
city.
but in
Which has a
terms,
million walkers coming
well,
during the
that's
season.
the thing. The walkers are getting access to the town, and.
But they don't bother anyone.
It's public town,
They don't
and
bother anyone.
that's what it is, but you have a tremendous amount of people. There's nowhere to walk on Sunny Isles.
But if you go in the morning on A1A, there are a lot of walkers.
Mhm.
So, I mean, a lot of people walk on A1A. I know when I leave town to go in the morning, there are a lot more walkers on A1A than in Golden
You
Beach.
have to be
But you
careful
have
pulling
a
in.
Lot, my wife knows better than.
Right, but
I mean,
it's nice
She walks
that
8
way.
miles in the morning and she knows the town and she says that there's a tremendous influx of people and they have a right to be here.
And they don't
But-
bother anybody.
But if we can have a deterrent, fobs on the gates, things like that, because they have to have an access.
That you've already approved.
Okay,
So that you've already approved. So part of this, and I want to hit.
I mean, if they can have access through the stream, that's fine. If they're willing to walk around
I
and get in
promise,
there.
I promise it will still try to be out here by 8, but I was trying to be earlier. But I want to make 3 quick points. One, the fob system, you've already approved as part of your RCC injury package, and we are going with fob and access control throughout the community. And we have made accommodations for the Shabbat. 2, the reason it's a market is we've changed the approach and the methodology of the wall, right? So we're no longer with a full block cinder block. A full cinder block wall is now a different system. That's why we saw the savings. And the other thing is, what about Ocean Boulevard? Let me tell you what we're doing on Ocean Boulevard, if the council were to approve it. One, without council approval, we, as a committee, have changed all of the chain link fence on Ocean Boulevard. So we've now installed, by the end of March, we have installed at every speed end, a new fence system similar to that of the bus station. Mayor Singer directed me to do that last year, and by the way, we found a new vendor who has saved us a lot of money. So we've now put in all the new aluminum fence instead of the chain link with new doors, with new locks that are eventually going to become access control locks. That's being done. We're working with our homeowners on Ocean who are lots to put in permanent fence versus chain link fence. And as part of the current proposal that we're working on for proximity cameras, we intend to provide cameras at every median on Ocean, capturing walkers and vehicles north and southbound every block. So instead of just 2 cameras on the north and south side, we're proposing to put a total of 12 cameras on Ocean and on the Ocean and on the intercoastal. So we're creating what they call a geo fence using cameras and proximity meters, not as good as a wall, but we are looking at Ocean and intercoastal, how to become more fortified as a community, as has been the demand placed on us by the new owners of our community. Look, it's my job to try to help implement all of the desires of the community. I love how flexible we've become. Again, moving to this permacast wall system. Is it ultimately what I would have hoped for? No, I think that a cinder block wall is more appropriate and more durable. Yeah, this has a 30-year minimum.
I think this wall looks better than the cinder block.
It does look better. It is better.
And it serves the
And
purpose.
it allows us to achieve a goal this year, and so we could deliver this to our residents. By the way, I know that this hasn't come up, but I will just share this with you. Memo. We plan to pay for this using the savings that your amazing staff was able to provide to you in last year's budget process. We had a great surplus in last year's budget, so we're taking up a small percentage of that surplus. Thanks to the kudos to the staff for their savings,
The living staff.
the living staff.
Hey, guys, I'm sorry, I thought we were gonna go there. We take the vote on this, just, by the way, I'm fully supportive. This has been something I know we've been asking for years. Just based on your event, gonna wrap it up.
Anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, very, very quickly, so Massini, obviously it's been covered by strawberry and trees and whatnot. On the south side, on Terracina, this the aesthetic of the civic center and whatever you end up designing there, so let's not jump ahead of.
Yeah, we will. And purpose of rules is ready to pass it. We'll get this in law.
Roll call, please. Anyone else? Any public comments? No? No. Roll call, please.
Mayor Singer,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Luskin,
Yes,
Councilmember Bernstein,
Yes.
Councilmember Einstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel. Motion passes.
Okay, last item on the agenda. Resolution of town council assigning each council member the duty to inquire into the operation of a particular area of town operations.
A resolution of the town council of the town of Fulton Beach, Florida, assigning each council member the duty to inquire into the operation of a particular area of governmental responsibility, providing for conflict, providing for implementation, and providing an effective date.
Any motion to approve?
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Real quickly, we do this every year. The current assignments, myself as the finance department, I'm moving to general government. Vice Mayor Luskin is currently building and zoning department. She will move to finance department. Councilman Bernstein work in the public works department. He'll be moving to police department. Councilman Mandel is general government. He'll be working, become vice mayor and be working with public works department. And Councilman Einstein, currently police department, will be working building zoning department. Does anyone have any comments?
And it's a town attorney's department.
Roll call, vote please.
Wait, yeah.
What, anyone have any comment?
No.
You sure you don't want to talk on this? You talk on every other item.
You did a great job.
It's my job
You
to
did a
talk.
great job.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Singer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Luskin.
yes.
Councilmember Bernstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Einstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
I know,
Motion passes.
I know I'm in the rest of the out here, but let me just ask this question, two things. February 14th, rooftop,
No, February.
February 24th with rooftop, okay. But the month of March has 5 weeks in it. Do you still want to keep the meeting for the third week, or do you want to move to the fourth week?
Fourth week.
Always put it off, like,
That's it. So right now, the meeting is scheduled for March 15th. We don't need to move it, we don't.
We'll keep it March 15th.
I agree.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the end of March.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, my word.
Get it straight.
I love when you guys are on the